If you read old household manuals, wartime pamphlets, or practical guides written before central heating became common, you'll notice a quiet consistency in how beds were treated. Grandparents were obsessive about warmth at night, not through luxury, but through control. They understood that heat loss in bed was not only about blankets, but about what the body touched for 8 hours straight. One item, once common and later normalized, was deliberately removed because it drained warmth steadily through the night: the metal bed frame. Metal bed frames were treated as heat thieves, not furniture. Iron and steel bed frames were widespread from the late 19th century through the early 20th century, especially in urban homes. They were marketed as modern, hygienic, and durable. Older generations quickly noticed something manufacturers never mentioned. Metal absorbs body heat rapidly and disperses it just as fast. When a mattress rests on a metal frame, heat is pulled downward and outward all night long, especially in unheated or poorly heated rooms. Grandparents didn't debate this academically. They felt it. Beds were colder, sleep was lighter, and feet stayed cold no matter how many blankets were added. The solution in many homes was simple and deliberate. The metal frame was removed entirely or insulated so it no longer touched the mattress directly. Wooden slats, rope beds, or solid timber platforms replaced bare iron supports, because wood does not conduct heat the way metal does. Earlier sleep systems focused on stopping heat loss at contact points. Heat doesn't only escape upward into the air, it drains downward into whatever the body rests on. A metal frame beneath a thin mattress becomes a cold reservoir. Even today, touch a metal surface in winter, and you'll feel the heat leave your hand instantly. The same thing happens to the body over hours of sleep. Now, grandparents addressed this by eliminating the cold pathway. Rope beds, wooden box frames, and thick plank bases were common, not really out of tradition, but out of necessity. These materials, well, they slowed down heat transfer. When metal frames couldn't be removed, folks would isolate them with thick boards, folded wool blankets, or even straw mattresses placed right between the metal and the sleeper. The goal was always the same, remove direct contact between the body and any heat-conducting structure. Metal frames were often raised high off the floor, which allowed cold air to circulate freely underneath. In the winter, especially in stone or timber houses with uninsulated floors, this moving cold air would pull warmth downward through the mattress. Older households, well, they were very aware of this effect. Beds were lowered closer to the floor, skirted tightly, or placed on solid bases to stop airflow. Removing the metal frame was part of controlling the microclimate around the bed. Warmth was conserved by reducing exposure, not just by piling on more layers. And that's why many traditional beds appear heavy and grounded rather than light and elevated. This knowledge survived because, well, it actually worked in unheated rooms. Before central heating, bedrooms were often the coldest rooms in the house, Fires were expensive, fuel was rationed, and overnight heating was rare. Grandparents slept warm because, really, they engineered the bed itself as a thermal system. By removing metal frames, they reduced heat loss without burning more fuel. This really mattered during the Great Depression, wartime rationing, and especially in rural areas where fuel had to be hauled or cut by hand. The bed was expected to retain heat for hours, not minutes. Anything that drained warmth was removed without sentiment. Today, metal bed frames are sold as minimalist, breathable, and stylish. But from a thermal perspective, they recreate the same conditions older generations worked hard to avoid. Thin mattresses on metal slats suspended above open air behave almost exactly like those early iron bedsteads. For someone living in a cooler climate, an older house, or maybe even an off-grid situation, this really matters. The body loses heat through conduction and convection, no matter what kind of modern aesthetics you might have. If you wake up with cold hips, legs, or feet, even though you've got heavy blankets on top, the issue is often below you, not above. You don't need to abandon your bed to apply this lesson. The principle here is to interrupt heat transfer. Placing a solid wooden board between the mattress and metal slats can dramatically reduce heat loss. Using a thick wool underblanket or a felted pad does pretty much the same thing. Lowering the bed closer to the floor or sealing up airflow underneath helps reduce convective cooling overnight too. In survival or preparedness contexts, this becomes downright critical. In cold environments without reliable heat, insulating the sleeping surface is just as important as insulating the body. Campers use foam pads for the same reason our grandparents rejected metal frames. The principle never changed, only the context did. Central heating masked the problem. Once bedrooms stayed warm all night, the slow drain of heat through metal frames became less noticeable. Convenience and design replaced efficiency. Knowledge that was once essential faded because discomfort no longer forced people to remember it. Yet when heating fails, energy prices rise, or folks return to older buildings, the old rules apply instantly. The body hasn't changed. Heat still moves the same way it did 100 years ago. They didn't rely on theory. They removed what didn't work. If something stole heat, it was gone. Comfort came from understanding materials, airflow, and contact, not from marketing or trends. The bed was treated as equipment, not decoration. That mindset is worth recovering. Small changes grounded in old knowledge often outperform modern solutions layered on top of flawed foundations. If this kind of practical history matters to you, subscribe to Wisdom for the Journey, share this with someone who still wakes up cold at night, and keep these lessons alive. The past solved problems we're quietly relearning today.